Danny, what's the piece of this that is standing out the most to you? How about let's start with Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe, really strong. Vibes are great to finish the season, no doubt. After converting, the 31-yard Hail Mary, on Gravedigger. How do you think Jalen Milroe is going to perform against this Georgia defense?
Depends on if they can take away his run or not. I think there's two phases. You want to take away his run game and you want to take away the big pass. And it's something we've talked about all season long. 55% he's completing 55% of his passes of 20 more yards in the air. And he's got 15 touchdowns and 1 interceptions on those throws. And then look at the games where he's killed teams with his legs. It's like, oh, so if you can take away those things, I think you pretty much are challenging him to beat you in areas that he's not very good at. So I would expect Kirby to try to do that. And the thing that's unique about this matchup is that Georgia should be pretty good at doing the part through the deep ball. I think they should be able to defend him, but can they get I think their secondary will stack up nicely. I think they'll be able to do that. So I think it kind of boils down to his legs. Can you prevent the big play, the extending 3rd and 4th down conversions, giving up the big 30, 40-yard rush, for a touchdown? Can you take that away? That to me is the biggest matchup in this game is Georgia's defense against, and it's interesting because their run defense, their defensive line has not been great. That's the one thing that's different about this Georgia team in the 3rd year of this dynasty is they've completely almost flipped the script of what they've been. The defense was what they started on. Offense kind of was weaker. Then last year was probably the culmination of everything all together. Then this year, the defense is good. I'm not saying I'm not trashing the defense, but the offense has actually been carrying the bulk of the water for the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah, I'm optimistic about their ability to slow Alabama down because, it's not the same schematically, but as far as the areas of the field that they attack, the Alabama offense isn't really that much different than the Tennessee offense. And we have seen Georgia pretty much able to smother that the last 2 years. And I think you'll see a similar approach from them defensively where they'll, all right, Jalen, hit the singles. We know you can hit the home runs, but if we take that away from you, just see if you can hit the short stuff. But yeah, you're right. It's can they contain him in the pocket and keep him from running and, extending drives with his legs, picking up first downs and that kind of stuff? Because we've also seen Georgia's secondary has been the better part of its defense this year, but because of that, I don't want to say the pass rush hasn't been incredible. And we have seen the secondary kind of get chewed up at times because of that, not consistently, but you can hit big plays on them because they don't get to the QB the same way that they used to. So that's going to be a key thing. But on the other side, like you were saying, can Alabama get enough stops against this Georgia offense? Because this is a really difficult Georgia offense to stop right now because early in the year, they were really struggling to run the ball. That's no longer the case. They've been able to run the ball now for at least a month. They're very well balanced. They're very complete. If you take something away from them, they can counter and go somewhere else and beat you with it. They've got a lot more weapons in the passing game than you probably realize. And it's a really tough team to stop. So yeah, it's going to come down to, you ready for this one, guys? It's going to come down to who can get stops.
Hey, but so we don't have, obviously Nolan Smith got injured before the end of the season, but this crew of linebackers, there's no Nakobe Dean out there. This is a big game for, whether it's Dumas Johnson, whether it's Munden, whether it's Sorey, a lot of these guys.
It's been Allen because Dumas Johnson got hurt.
CJ Allen, the freshman, is balling for them. True freshman's gotten a lot of time. This Chambliss, this is a big game for some of those Georgia linebackers, which has been a little bit of a rotation unit, some because of health, like you mentioned with Dumas Johnson. But in my mind, when I'm thinking about containing the big playability of Jalen Milroe, it's going to be about those linebackers being able to keep him in the pocket and not being able to break, contain, and give him those free lanes to run, because it is a group that I know, because we're sitting here we are being critical of a Georgia defense that is, big air quotes here, only trash. Top 15 to top 20 in the country, right? Yeah. We're just so used to seeing that be 1-5. And on third down, they've been very good this year. It is a big, like, challenge yourself. You can step up and really secure this SEC championship. If Georgia gets really, really, really good play out of that defensive front, then I mean, it might not be close.
So they have struggled with running quarterbacks this year, though.
So yeah. Auburn was able to move the ball on both of these defenses.
Mm-hmm.
What do we make with that? Like, we go common opponent on this thing, and
he was very good at putting together a game plan. That's what I put together out of that.
And we don't trust Tommy Rees or Mike Bobo to be able to be nearly as creative as it pertains to exposing whatever flaws or weaknesses might be on tape from those games.
I trust that they can. I just think that Hugh's very, very good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Georgia's defense definitely is not as like automatic, robot dialed in as it's been in past years. Like they do jump around some, they get out of gaps some. Like there are ways that you can move the ball on them that I actually think match up fairly well with what Alabama does. It's just going to come down to, like, how does Georgia's run blitz stuff work? Do they keep Milroe in the pocket? He's improved as a thrower. I don't think he scares Georgia as a thrower. I think he scares them as a thrower on the run, or like as a thrower, because Georgia has to play certain coverage looks that are accounting for the legs. I think UGA is excellent in coverage, so they should be able to hang with Alabama's receivers. But Bama does have some guys who have some real ability. Like, of course they do. They have the highest blue chip ratio ever, right? Like, Bama still has a lot of dudes. They just, their offense stalls at times. They were down at the half to Tennessee, right? They needed a miracle to beat Auburn. They looked really good against an LSU team that had all four corners out and their best D tackle out. Like, a lot of people have looked good in recent weeks against that LSU defense now that they lost those guys. So I think Georgia can probably move it I think Alabama could probably move it on Georgia some. How many third and long type situations can Georgia force? Because then I think it really does shift to a decided advantage in Georgia's favor. On the flip side, like, some of the stuff people have done run game wise to get Alabama is not exactly what Georgia does. So I'm curious, like, can Georgia just line up and mash it at Bama? Because I think Bama's got the best defense in the country. So, I mean, maybe I'm wrong about that. Like, certainly the times this year they've given up some yards, but like, player wise, I mean, Turner and Braswell are freaks off the edge. I think they got nice cover guys. The linebackers are good. They got a lot of guys who can play inside. I don't think Georgia's just going to like throw it all over the yard. They're going to have to make some big time plays one-on-one. Getting Bowers back probably helps a ton. Like, this is a game where, like, you go to them when you need them, and you probably need them a lot.
What team offensively had the most success against Bama in their backyard?
LSU
or Texas, and one of those two.
Yeah.
I was thinking, because I think the Texas game plan looks more similar than the LSU game plan. So like, that's like the big plays, like you were talking about, like, that's the recipe, I think, if you're Georgia, what their offense could look like.
Are those the only two, like, what we would call good quarterbacks Bama actually faced this year? Because, like, maybe there's a situation, because, like, Dart didn't have any of the receivers healthy when he played them, and Bama knew it, and they just disrespected the. Because remember, Ole Miss was like Harris and Franklin and the tight end pre-scoring were all hurt. I mean, there seems to be, like, A&M, it was Max Johnson, Auburn's Thorne, who, I mean, we just talked about last segment.
Statistically, like, the only red numbers on Alabama's defensive profile from the year are Texas and LSU.
Mm-hmm.
And both those teams moved it on them. So, like, maybe there's a chance I'm wrong about Bama's defense. Like, maybe when they face a decent quarterback, they give up a lot.
Yeah.
Possible. SC quarterback play this year was really bad, especially, like, the ones Bama faced. So, like, there's some unknowns.
Except for three.
Was Byron Brown a top 5 quarterback that Alabama faced this year?
Well, he only scored 7 points on him, so
3 points.
Like, would I take Byron Brown over Johnson, anybody from Mississippi State, Thorne,
KJ,
Joe Milton, or KJ?
No,
he's definitely a top 5 quarterback that Bama's faced so far this year. I don't know if he's like top 3.
Yeah,
I would take healthy Dart over him.
We're going to be doing our locks for this tomorrow, but before we move on, what's the overall general sense for the way the game's going to play out without giving away your pick?
Some of us already gave away a lot last weekend.
Well, Chip, I think both teams are going to try to score points, and the other teams are going to try to stop from scoring points. And then in the end, one of those teams will have more points than the other.
I mean, this line has been out for like 10 days now.
Right.
It opened at like 4, got bet down to 3, and then since then it's just been all Georgia money.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it goes to 7. Probably sits around 6. I don't know. We'll see. Stay tuned for locks.
No total thoughts?
I think it's higher scoring.
Yeah.
Yeah, like on numbers, I can't get there, but on athletes, like when you have this many athletes playing a game, a lot of times it's like, okay, big plays are going to happen because you have a lot of what I would call like touchdown scorers, on both sides.
I think Alabama determines how this game goes. I don't think Alabama's in a position with the way that it is played this year, with the inconsistencies across the entire body of work across all 12 games, 11 of them against FBS opponents. I think that if Alabama comes out there and plays its best game, then yes, absolutely it can win. I think Georgia can win not without its best game. I think Alabama needs its best game. And so it makes it, you're just only putting it on the hands of the greatest coach in college football history. Try to get them ready to go play their best game. Be very curious to see how that goes.
To be fair to Alabama, I think everybody needs their best game to beat Georgia.
Right. Yeah. And that's why I say like Georgia can probably win without its best game.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that Alabama's got to jump up into Georgia's realm to be able to go toe to toe and get out of Atlanta with a win that would send, again, as I said last night on the Tuesday reaction show, 2 results cause heartbreak. That's all it takes. Alabama over Georgia paired with Florida State over Louisville is heartbreak. It results in power conference champions being left out and or the 2-time reigning champions with the 12-1 record being left out and or undefeated team being left out. Which I don't think
the takes, Chip.
What?
Think of the takes.
I'm just laying it out now, so it's not a surprise later. An Alabama win at 4 p.m. Eastern time, paired with the Florida State win at 8 p.m. Eastern time, it's chaos.